Hello again. This is Trifecta Talks, and we have one less member with us today, unfortunately. Mr. Jared couldn't make it, so it is just Brian and
Brandon.
Brandon. There we go.
I did
I
it.
totally didn't forget your name. Yeah, unfortunately, Jared couldn't make it tonight, so it's just going to be us two. So we will do as much as we can to fill the void left by him. But so if we want to jump right into things, we're going to flip it up the order of the things we do. We're going to kick off with what we typically end the show with, and we're going to start with what we're playing. Now, I don't have much to say, so Brandon, if you want to kick this one off, you can go right ahead.
Sure, I'm playing like multiple things. Actually, just two things.
Okay.
I'm still playing Breath of the Wild.
Okay. How's that going?
Pretty good. I'm at the last dungeon, the last Divine Beast.
Ooh.
So, and I feel like every time I go in that game, I'm discovering new things all the time. And I feel like that's the same for everybody else when they play the game.
That's a game I've wanted to jump into, but I have zero knowledge of playing. I have zero experience playing Legend of Zelda, so I've never played any of the classics or anything like that. So I don't know if it's a good idea for me to jump right into Breath of the Wild or not.
I think a lot of people jumped into Breath of the Wild as their first Zelda, so I don't think there's any harm. I think the best Zeldas to jump into, the best Zeldas to if it's your first Zelda, are probably Ocarina of Time, or Link to the Past. I don't recommend. I was just telling this to somebody, and I was recommending. I was like, this is a hot take, and I don't care whatever anyone has to say, but the first two Zelda games on NES are just absolute garbage. They are not the greatest.
What were the first two?
They were just the first Legend of Zelda and the Legend of Zelda 2.
Okay.
Not I get it, limitations and all that, but if you're someone like me who didn't live that era and that doesn't have the manuals, that doesn't grasp what's going on, it's just kind of in the sense of Breath of the Wild, it plops you in the middle of the nowhere, and you just kind of go off, but there's no perfect map. But with Breath of the Wild, It feels like there's some guidance where you talk to NPCs and, they kind of hint at things as you progress along. But with the first Zelda, it's just kind of you meet the old man, he gives you the sword, and then you just kind of go off from there with no sense of direction, which I guess that was the main point of the game. But again, that's just a game that is just I don't know. There's no structure.
We went around. Yeah, we went around for the time of it, so you'd say it's probably just completely relying on the nostalgia at this point.
I don't even know. I think a lot of people just don't even like it. Prove me wrong. If somebody really likes those two games, tell me, because I don't want to hurt anyone. I think when they finally got a good grasp on it was when it went to SNES, and at that point they were able to harness better technology to do NPCs and have people talk and tell a well-written story, rather than just plopping in the middle of nowhere and calling it a day. That's just me, though. I won't. Okay. If Jared was here, he probably had some choice words to say, or maybe he'd agree with me. I have no idea, but
maybe he would. And if it was somebody's favorite Zelda that's watching right now, whether it's the first one, second one, or you love both equally, and you're looking to throw hands in the comments, throw it down there. We will willingly throw hands back, but in a lovingly manner, because we're so grateful that you're watching.
And then the other thing I'm playing is it just came out, and I've never played it before on the Wii, so this is my first run, is Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's been... What a hard game. I mean, it's tough. I feel like Jared has played this game, and he could maybe relate on this, but maybe he hasn't. But it's so difficult. I've never rage quit at a Nintendo game like this before. It's ridiculous. For such a doof for Donkey Kong to be, it's it challenges you ridiculously. Like, there's a reason why they give away so many lives for
Mm-hmm.
free. It's just because
Yeah.
like I think I spent a level for maybe an hour, and I used like 70% of my lives. Like I went from
Jesus.
99 lives to 30 because,
Oh my god.
and maybe this is like maybe everyone agrees upon this, and I haven't really looked into it, but there's these levels in the game where it turns into Flappy Bird, and it's
Oh
ridiculously
no.
stupid. It's
Oh,
stupid,
not
and
not
along with
not the
that,
Flappy Bird.
yeah, except it's like a barrel and he's like flying. But it's even worse than Flappy Bird because there's like a certain delay. So like there's like this weird physic where like you start to dip too far, and if you
Mm-hmm.
dip too far and you start holding down A to get back up, it kind of like takes a minute to like boost back up again. So you got to keep this like
Gotcha.
rhythm of like if you want to stay straight, it's not don't press A fast or else you'll lose momentum. You got to press it as an
Yeah.
easy pace, but like there's certain times where you have to get lower to get like the letter or a puzzle piece for the extra 100%ing stuff. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking forward to going back and replaying them. So I've been trying to just do them on the first try so I can avoid them. But
There you go.
it's been a tough game, but I can see why so many people praise it as like this big return, and I'm hoping he makes a grander return on Switch 2, which we'll talk about
Oh,
later.
yes, absolutely. When is that supposed to come out? Do we have a date on that?
For
For the Donkey Kong remake or whatever that's coming out?
I'm already playing it. Well, it's a
Oh,
remaster
is
of.
so it is. That's already. I thought. Oh, okay. I don't know why I was thinking of like an
There
older
is
game you were
no
playing.
no.
Okay.
There's it came
Gotcha.
out on Wii, it came out on 3DS,
Mm-hmm.
and it got ported to Wii U, but you could technically
Mm-hmm.
still play it if you had the original copy.
Oh,
And
okay.
then it got remastered for Switch.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's been some flack about that, but I think it's kind of been redacted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I like it. I've never played it, so for me, it's a great game, and it's a
There you go.
game. For me. So originally, the plan was like I wasn't going to buy it because I was like, let's hold off and see what Switch 2 does. And lo and behold, they did something, and it's a bit farther out than we expected. So I was like, okay, I get
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing. I get the lifespan of this is that these are consoles that live, you know, in the same vein. They live together, kind of like how so there's some PS5 and PS4 games that were,
Mm-hmm.
that came out together on both systems and still do. So I get it. So I dug in. I did the deal where you can get 2 vouchers, which is a great deal. If you haven't used it, use it. If you're an online member, you get 2 games for the price of $100. That's you save an extra $20. It's
I'll
digital
have to
though,
use that.
but for my Switch, I don't mind going digital. So,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so I got that, and I got Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. So
Ooh.
I can play both back to back,
Hey, there you go. Okay,
and
that should be
that's
fun.
pretty much it. That's all I'm playing.
Gotcha. For me, it's my usual. It's college football season, and at the time of recording tonight is the national championship. So I've been running through my Clemson dynasty still.
I was gonna
In my
say.
third season. We're just about to play the conference title game before going into the playoffs, and I'm the number one seed. I had one bad loss though. I lost to the 1-3 Florida State Seminoles when I was undefeated, and I dropped my rank from 1 all the way down to 14, and I had to fight my way back up.
Jeez,
So yeah,
that's
the college
rough.
football rankings they're so strict. Um, but I fought my way back up. We're back to number one. Don't worry. Took only 7-8 weeks. But we're back. So now I'm ranked back number one. We got the number one seed. We're gonna have a bye. It's great. Um, hope I think once I'm done with this season, I'm gonna probably take a little bit of a break from college football just so I can play other stuff. I'm hoping to jump back into Cyberpunk. I have not touched Mafia in like months. It's been since October of last year. I have not touched it, and I was going through it quick. Like I had a week off where I was sick, and all I did was play Mafia, and I just like blew through a huge chunk of the story. So I'm hoping to jump back into that. And when I was looking through games, some of my older games for our next topic that's coming up here shortly, I'm kind of hankering to play the PS2, and I still have that hooked up. So I was looking through games that I bought recently. I say recently, like a year or two ago, that I bought when I was getting back into that, along with games I've had the whole time I've had the consoles. And I'm like, it'd be nice to kind of get back into that, get some nostalgia going, even play some of or even get back into the games that I had started that I bought recently and have not played since then. Like I played started playing that FPS game Black. That's really good. The destruction on that is like for a PS2 game. It's like a battlefield. It's nuts. It's so much fun. But I think that was the last game I played on it. If not that, it was one of the older WWEs. But yeah, definitely like Cyberpunk Mafia. I'd like to get back into. PS2 would be nice. And I was also looking at some of my PS4 stuff, and it's like I have not touched the PS4 probably since the summer. So I might have to go back and finish that, or at least finish one game I was playing prior, which was still have not finished, is Doom 2016.
Neither have I. I had to get back into it. I think I have it on Switch physically. I can't remember. But it runs great on Switch. I actually haven't tried it on the OLED, and it might look even better.
Even better. Which it's so surprising to hear that was. I mean, not super surprising, but it's still like, it's great to hear that it ports so well to Switch because it's such a bigger game. I did not think it was going to port like that, but they mastered it. Yeah, it turned out great. So I'm very happy for them. I have that on PS4, so I'll probably finish it on there, and then maybe at some point I'll play Doom Eternal, which is on Game Pass on Xbox, and I have Game Pass, so I'll play it on there. Then I have a couple other ones. I have some classics on PS4 that I have not touched, and I think I mentioned them before, so I'll have to get into those. There's so many games that I want to play, but once I get going in one of these football games, whether it's Madden or college football, I get stuck in it. So once I finish up the next season, I think I'm going to probably take a break for a bit, just, so I can break the cycle and play some other stuff finally.
I get it. Well, that's like me, because it's like I'll play PS5 for like I was playing Ghost of Tsushima for such a long time. And I think that's like the beauty of like also having a Switch alongside your PC or Xbox or whatnot, is that you can play some really calm, comforting games.
Oh yeah,
and that change the pace of things. Not strongly narrative, but just like I don't know, like Breath of the Wild isn't. You wouldn't think is so calming and comforting, but the music, like literally, the music is strictly all piano, and I think I just love it for that alone. I don't know if that won best score at one point. I feel like it did, but I could be totally wrong at the same time.
It probably did.
It had a big year. I know that.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, that's awesome. That's a lot of games lined up.
Heck yeah. I'm hoping to, get through a good chunk of them. And it's funny they bring up playing stuff like calming stuff on Switch. I would like to get on Switch as well to play. Was it Unpacking? Yes. I started that. At least maybe, the beginning of.
Listen, maybe you should hold off on Unpacking on Switch. Just saying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that when we get there. We'll get there.
Calm down.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Calm down.
Wait.
Halt. Unpacking. I have Firewatch as well. I want to.
Brian, you know what's crazy? I just realized our rooms match in color.
They do, don't
it? Kind of looks like we're in the same vicinity in some way.
You're in one corner of a room. I'm in the other corner.
I just walk over.
Hey, Brandon.
Anyways, I just had to point that out because, like, with Jared, he's usually in the middle, and I never noticed it until now. So.
Oh, that's funny. Hold on. What if I? Give me 1 second. There we go.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh, it's like we're in the same place.
Amazing.
Alrighty. So let's get into our next topic. Do we want to get into the big one, or do we want to get into our next smaller one and then into the big one?
Oh, we're gonna save the big one for last.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought we were going to do. I just wanted to make sure. So our next topic, we kind of bounced back and forth on which way we wanted to do this, but we landed on talking about games that have great stories, but overall, it's not a good game. Which that it's a bit of a tougher topic than I thought. Like I was looking through games, it's like it's either it's got a great story, an overall great game, or it doesn't have either one of those things. So I really had to dig through my collection of stuff and like think of stuff that I played where I think, oh wow, like the story's it's pretty fun, or at least fun, but then overall like the gameplay is not good, or like it's enough to ruin the experience. I have two. Technically, I have one franchise and one singular game, so I'll kick this one off. The franchise is actually a port, and they're great on everything else, literally everything else. When they started coming out on like the earlier consoles, they're great on PS2, great on then 360. They're great on the PS4 or PS3, PS4, everything. Every other console, PC they came out on, they're all great, except
And it's a port.
And it's a port.
Strictly the port is
bad.
okay.
Because the gameplay is so atrocious.
Wait, is it? No, I don't think it is. It's not the GTA trilogy, is it?
No.
Okay.
No. So these came out a while ago. And I think the last one, they only did maybe 3 of them on there, and I played 2. And 2 were enough to ruin it for me, at least on that port. But the novelty of it is what brought me back every now and then. And I even played it once more maybe 2 years ago, I think. And it was just fun. It was fun for the novelty of it, but man, is it a bad game. And that's the 2 Lego Star Wars ports that I played on the Nintendo DS. Oh. So here's the thing. The story's great because it's Star Wars, right? Over this, right? Yeah. The story's great because it's just Star Wars, but like on a more comedic level, and just made easier for kids. Like they made it easier for kids to understand. And the gameplay on everything else is super fun, smooth, simple. They're so much fun to just binge all of them. Then on the DS, they did, at least the only ones I played, they did Lego Star Wars 2 and then Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga, which is like it's everything. It's basically just 2, but they added everything else from the first game into it. So yeah, like I was saying, the story is fun because it is the same exact thing. But the gameplay is so bad. It's quite literally. It might.
I think this was a conversation we had before where
a while ago, because Lego Star Wars came up at one point.
Yeah, well, it was like the idea of the home console games were never the handheld games, and it was always done by a different developer. And I don't know if that was the same for the DS games, but I can agree with that on a lot of Lego games,
which is shocking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Here's what I'll say about Lego games on DS. What a feat to do that. I mean, I don't know how they did DS. Well, actually, I think they had a Game Boy version too of this, and it was a side scroller, which was nuts.
Yeah.
But the DS one was pretty 3D in some ways.
Yep.
So the one I'm talking about is I had Lego Batman.
Okay.
And that was maybe my first Lego game. And I really wasn't a fan of Batman. So I didn't really know what was going on half the time. But it was... How do I put this lightly? It's a game that... Well, it's probably the same how you would say about Star Wars, where it's just like a lot of it is confusing. It's gameplay that all looks the same, very repetitive, a lot of going back to
Yeah.
levels, and tedious work to unlock characters to do certain things. And yeah, and I think that was just the unfortunate part of handhelds is like they were much smaller than the console versions, and therefore the only way they saw to increase longevity was to put in a bunch of extra stuff to make you replay levels and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Which, you know, and it's unfortunate because that could have been such a big opportunity for them to kind of rework the games a bit. Like they had no issues like to begin with, but if they wanted to revamp it a bit for these smaller consoles and like present them in a slightly more different way, like you were saying with the Game Boy, they did a side scroller. Like they wouldn't have to do that, but they essentially just took the same exact game and extremely like minimized it.
Oh, really?
And it was, oh, dude, it was super pixelated, like to the it's rough. I gotta show you sometime. It is a rough port. The
See, that's crazy because, like, you think of, like, and that wasn't a port, granted, but I think of Mario 64 DS
Okay.
and how. Have you played that?
No.
Do you have a DS still? Or a
Oh yeah.
3DS? You have a 3DS. You should totally find a way to get it because what an amazing. The people hail that as like a really great, like that's the ultimate version of Mario 64.
Really?
It's pretty crazy how they were able to cram a 64 game into a DS and it looks beautiful. And
Really?
it yeah. I mean it's a demake, which but I appreciate them because instead of just porting it, which I don't even think they could do,
Yeah.
it still looked phenomenal. Like
Oh yeah.
it's
Oh,
great.
that's awesome.
And they added so
That's
much more to it.
that's awesome. And
Yeah.
you look at the 3DS, they were doing the same thing. They were porting Lego games from, you know, the consoles to that. And I don't know how much more powerful the 3DS is than the DS. It's definitely much more powerful, considering you can mod it and everything. Um, but the ports were so much better on that as opposed to the typical DS is specifically in the Lego like stuff. So, like I said, I go back once in a blue moon for nostalgia purposes, but man, they're rough. They're pretty rough. Um, yeah, I remember playing a decent amount of them as a kid, and even then, I was like, "This is not like the PS2. This is not." And even like you go up to 360, I'm like, I don't think I could go back at that
Yep.
time. Now it's a nostalgia thing, but
Yep.
yeah, those ports that was a rough port. The the other game is this one's tough because I still have a soft spot for this game, and I have not played it in years. Um, I would like to hear Jared's reaction to this, so I'll have to tell him afterwards. But so it's a wrestling game. It was from WWE's rival company TNA, and it was just called TNA Impact, which was the name of their weekly show at the time. Now, what TNA did to rather than make a carbon copy of the WWE games, because this was their first attempt at it, WWE had been doing them for years, and they had mastered it at that point. They were releasing classic after classic, so this is their first attempt to kind of reset the market and give WWE a run for their money. Fortunately, they didn't because they only got one other game out, and then the games they never released another one. They were the first ones to use mocap for wrestling. They never WWE is strictly animating everything. They were just doing everything by like creating everything in the computers. TNA Impact did every move was mocapped. So, and this came out in like maybe 06, 05, 06. So that was a fairly early time to use motion capture for a game like that. So the gameplay is not great. It's a little for something that For a game where the characters move so fluidly, it is clunky. It is very clunky. I played it a lot when I first initially got it, and I got into TNA. And maybe it was strictly because I can finally play as the TNA guys because none of these guys are in WWE for obvious reasons. They're in the whole separate company. But man, that game had issues. Like it was very very basic in its gameplay. They didn't, aside from the mocap, which was like that was one of their main selling points of it was this is like this whole new revitalized way of playing a sports game like this,
Right.
and that was basically it. It completely dialed down everything WWE was already doing. Maybe it was a budget thing. I don't know because they're a much smaller company. But the mocap thing, they really tried to sell people on, and maybe that's what got them the second game. And then the second game, I don't know what they did. I never played it, and that was like 2010 maybe when that came out. Like TNA Cross the Line, I think it was called. That one was rough as well, from what I've heard, and now they have not had another game since then. But the story in it was actually pretty cool. And one of the cooler parts about it is I don't know if this helps the story at all, but so you play as a masked wrestler and who's completely made up, and you have run through his whole career. You start in like these like backyards and like parking lots wrestling in like Mexico all the way to like working arena shows, and that's cool to watch. Then he became such an icon in that game in real life that they took that character completely masked, had like completely suited up. You would never be able to know who it was, and then put him in real life. So that was a little. I don't know if that helps the thing at all because that's kind of cool that they did that, and I've never seen anybody do that before. But yeah, like I said, the story was fun. Nothing groundbreaking by any means. It's just like a typical underdog story. But you kind of had to get through the clunky gameplay to play the good story. So that's why I'd throw it in this category as well. I really couldn't think of anything else. The only other game I was thinking of, if we had flipped it, because initially there was another we had briefly considered doing good gameplay, bad story, was one I had thought of for that, which is not even a bad story. But for Call of Duty World at War, I might get flack for this because I like my Call of Duty campaigns where you're playing like one storyline, and that's it. I like playing as one character, even if like if you play as one or two missions where you play as somebody else for the sake of the story, that's totally fine. But with World at War, gameplay phenomenal, like one of the better CODs of that era. The story, you're just kind of jumping between points in history, if I remember correctly. If that's not correct, somebody tell me otherwise. But you're not really following a specific thing. You're just running through World War II, and you're just going from here, and then now we're going to jump to this point with these completely different characters. So the missions were fun, but there was not really any like. I didn't get really attached to anybody like I typically would for a campaign in a Call of Duty. So gameplay great, story didn't really care for it, but with the other two ones, those fit into this topic. Brandon, what do you got?
Nothing. No, I'm kidding. I have like
God.
three.
Okay.
No, I have three. I'll start with my first one. That's most recent. I'll go by recency. And it's such a stain on my shelf now.
Oh no.
I'm never gonna be able to get rid of it because I know I won't get a good price for it. And that was it was a THQ Nordic game, and I have so much faith in them. They're doing so well with third-party licensed games. And then this happened, and it was South Park Snow Day.
Is that the open world one? Or like one of the more
Well,
recent like open world kind of ones?
it's not really open world. It's more so it's a dungeon crawler, I guess.
Okay.
But it's so let me just say this. I appreciate the work that went into it. I appreciate that Matt and Trey Parker were there again like they were for Stick of Truth and Fractured Butthole. But it just goes to show that I don't think THQ... Well, I don't know what happened. I really wish I knew more of what happened exactly because they had it so good at Ubisoft. They kept the same animation. And in the THQ Nordic one, they're all 3D models now, which I was like, that's fine, I guess, because like they still kind of had that motion frame skip that they kind of do in the show, where it does feel like it's still like the animation from the show, just in 3D.
Okay.
But the issue lies with a lot of repetitiveness. And I don't know if that's just because it's a dungeon crawler, but all the levels is the same. And I think that, with a game called Snow Day, a lot of them are going to look the same because it's got a great story. So let me tell you the story if you don't know the story. But the story is that it's a snow day in South Park, and the kids go out and they play their, Wizards fairy tale game where Cartman is, the Grand Wizard and, stuff like that. Do you know those episodes by any chance, Brian?
I do not.
Okay. They're great. They're like Lord of the Rings things.
Oh, okay.
They did a whole trilogy on Black Friday that was parodying Game of Thrones. It was great.
Oh, that's cool.
So anyways, and they did it for Stick of Truth as well, which was so much better. But in this game, you're the new kid still. In fact, you're the same new kid from the Ubisoft games, and they kind of bring that in connection with that in a funny way. So like the writing's there, it's all South Park humor. It's very funny. It's just, and I did not finish it. I could not finish it because, and if he was here, if Jared was in this room, but
he would
again,
give you a run for your money.
He would give me a run for my money. But again, but the reason I stopped was because of the gameplay. I just couldn't fathom doing the same thing over and over again to the point where it felt almost like a mobile game.
And, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, and again, everything looks the same, and I can't fault them at the same time though because the game only costed $30, I believe. So it's like you pay what you get for, and I don't think a lot of work was put into it. A lot of assets were put into this game, and it felt almost like it felt for THQ. It was like, man, like let's really test this franchise out and see how far we can go. But I felt at the same time though, it's like they had a reference. They saw something that was already done before, and they didn't want to repeat success for some reason. But compared to other ones that they've done, where they did the SpongeBob Rehydrated remake, and it did phenomenal, and it was a game that cost $30, but it looked beautiful. The world looked exactly like the original. It played like the original, and in some cases, it looked better than the original. And then from that point, they made a sequel, and then that did pretty well. Not like crazy high praise, but it was positive, the feedback. And now they're working on a third entry for SpongeBob. So it's like, my worry is that I hope that the sales or the response doesn't inflict on what comes next from South Park, because I think Matt and Trey love games. They've talked about how much they love video games. I think it's talked in the show a lot, how much they love video games. And I just feel like to go from like two of the most praised RPGs at the time to go to this was kind of just out of the blue. So with that, I know obviously THQ Nordic still has the rights to South Park games. So I'm assuming they're going to do something again, and hopefully it will be back to just the 2D format, which was just great to begin with. I think it kept the show's identity. But we'll see. So that was one of them. The other one, the next one down the list is it's a Square Enix game. Funny enough, I have two Square games on this list. Um, Square Enix, big franchise. They had a lot at stake, and then everything fumbled because.
Oh no!
Do you know what it is?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It's I'm thinking of the Avengers.
Oh, okay.
Great, like
Oh.
a really great story. It
Mm-hmm.
really felt. It felt as if it was a Marvel comic, the way they told the story.
Mm-hmm.
But they're, again, a game that is so repetitive, and the reason because of that, at that time, everybody was all, let's do live service games, and they thought that was a grand idea. And in the grand scheme of things, I get it. I understood why they did that, because it was a story that would go beyond just the end of the game to keep you coming back. But it became a point where the updates were inconsistent, and along with that, the gameplay became the same. It was always fight these bad guys, fight the boss, fight this wave of people, get these drones. It was like all the same stuff a million times. And I feel like that's like the biggest problem with live service games, is that the only effort that's being put into those games is the story. And that's it. I think they just come up with the story first. It's like having like Telltale games, like Wolf Among Us. But with that, it is meant to be a story, and there's very minimal gameplay. But instead, they're taking these live service games and treating them like Telltale games, and selling it like a game too. They're selling it with action and adventure, but in reality, it's just story for $70 or $60. And with Telltale, it was like what, $10 for each episode? I don't really know, but
There's something like that.
something like that, and that's what that feels like. It just feels like a very. The story came first, and then they were like, "Okay, where's the gameplay?" And like, and they didn't know. They just kept repeating it, and I don't know what happened. I don't know. And it is clunky at points. It's not the best smooth gameplay out there.
Like they just kind of took they went ahead and made a great story, and then for the gameplay they were just kind of like, oh, just whatever. We'll just make it the most basic thing possible. Okay.
Really, it felt like that in ways, and I can never go back to play it again because it's shut down. And I think that's the worry about these live service. We talked about this, and maybe this is a topic for another day. But that's the worry with these live service games, is that one day they just shut down and you can't play the full game anymore. You can't play the full story.
Which for a game like that, like the Avengers, and like most recently is the Suicide Squad game. Why I get trying live service, but why not go the Guardians of the Galaxy route, where it's just story and what seems like fun gameplay? Why wouldn't you do that?
Right.
Rather than with these constant updates and having to be online all the time for it, and then be like, oh, if it's not working, we're just going to shut it down. You'll never be able to play it ever again. For games like that, it's so weird. Like, I get Fortnite, like that being live service. That's fine because it works for something like that. But for like a single player superhero game, why? Seeing how bad it failed, there's really no redeeming quality in even trying it ever again.
Nope. And you can't try it again because it's gone.
Yeah.
You can't play it. You can't open it. And then along with that, you tick a million people off who paid for the cosmetics and the digital currency, and then to just be like, I don't know when it was, probably 6 months before it was ending, they made everything free. And there's no refund for that. Like, you go in signing probably some contract or accepting some liability, saying you're not there's no chance that you might get refunded, basically, if the game shuts down. And that's just that's upsetting to most people.
Yeah,
So it's like,
absolutely.
what's the point of buying in unless there's an outcome or it lasts, because
Right.
it's not going to last. That's the fact.
No.
Look at Splatoon 3, where that's a game that doesn't have any, or not Splatoon 3, but anything in Splatoon franchise, where everything is free. The only thing you pay for is DLC for story. It's an expansion of the story. It's never for, you might unlock a character or some costumes with the expansion, but it includes story DLC. You're getting
Yeah.
something out of it that expands the game a little bit more and the
Right.
lore of the overarching story. But meanwhile, you have other ones, and Splatoon 3 like only lasts maybe like 2 to 3 years, but then they're right back on making a new one. With Avengers, it's not like when the game ends in 2 to 3 years, they're on track to make another one, because that's just
Yeah.
not their, that's just not what they're doing. Because what happens
Exactly.
is you're in a structure where Nintendo, they're very lucky. It's a first party company where, as as the game is out, the live service game, they're making their next game. And then when they're done with that next, because I think the people who made Splatoon 3 were the same people that were making Animal Crossing. And both are kind of like live service games in some way. So, they've got this mapped out to a T where 2 years of this, 2 years of that, repeat the cycle, and then it always continues on and on and on. Or it's like Fortnite where there's a new chapter, and then 2 years down the line or a year down the line, there's a new season or whatever it is. I don't understand it, but you know what I mean. There's like a whole
Yeah.
new
No, I gotcha.
story added onto it, and it's free. You don't
Yeah.
have to pay for the additional story. So it's just bizarre, basically, the
it's
whole
very
live
bizarre.
service thing.
And like, could you imagine if, like, with the wire, like, imagine if you would the like the amazing success that the first Spider-Man game had, like one of the highest selling games of all time. Imagine if that was live service and it still had that success, whatever, right? You do either Miles, or let's just go on to 2. Let's say Miles was an expansion, whatever.
Yeah,
You go on to 2, they're like, all right, 2's out. We don't have to do 1 anymore. So imagine if you had no plans on getting 2, and they just shut down 1 entirely. All the expanded, like the story expansions, all like you unlock costumes and everything. Like even if you bought some, they're all just gone. Like, could you imagine the outrage over something like that? Like if they had we're like, all right, that first game was successful. We don't have to worry about that one anymore. We're just going to shut it down, make 2, and
right.
then we're going to do the same thing with 2. That's just insane. Like, I can't even fathom something like that happening with that, or even like something like the Arkham games, whatever. Like, I don't know.
No, I got.
The live service games have a place in the gaming community, but they just don't belong with these single player games.
I was just gonna say quickly too. It's like, I can understand if like that console's online service is shutting down. I get it.
Like that's totally one. Yeah, that's one thing.
That's one thing. Like with the Wii U, you can't play Splatoon anymore. You can't play the first Splatoon on Wii U online. But you can still play, if you bought Splatoon 2 and never bought Splatoon 3, you can still play Splatoon 2 online.
Oh.
They did not shut it down. It's still there. You can play it.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how long that's going to last, obviously, because with, and again, this is a topic for when we talk about it, but Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible. So these games are going to continue, and, I don't know how that'll work in the end. It could become a free-to-play game later on, but for now, you could indefinitely play Splatoon 2 forever until the point Nintendo says to shut down the service. But it's been a while. I think the game came out in, I want to say 2017 or 2018. It's been a while. There's
been
still
a hot minute.
rocking. It's been a hot minute. Either way you look at it. So
Yeah.
it's just crazy that there's games out there that are still supplying online service to games you paid for, and yet you have games like Avengers or Suicide Squad that, well, Suicide Squad is still running, but its doors are shutting pretty soon.
They've already basically got 2. They've got all 10 toes out the door. They're leaving 1 heel in at the moment. There's no way that game's gonna last a whole nother year. At least I think. like that game's gonna collapse. Very much so.
Anyways, off topic. So there's that one, and then my last one is a surprising one, but not too surprising because I think it's a wide consensus. So it's not a Square game.
Okay.
It's a Kingdom Hearts game,
Oh.
and it's Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories.
Okay.
Now, granted, it might be better on Game Boy. I haven't played the Game Boy version. I've only played the PS2 version, and I know that PS2 version is a joke. Sorry. The story's phenomenal. I mean, the story's great just from like you walk into this random castle and all of a sudden Sora loses all of his memories from the first Kingdom Hearts. And basically you have to go throughout this castle to recollect your memories and so on and so forth. And then you find out like there's this inner organization called Organization 13 that's taking his memories and manipulating them and so on and so forth, basically. Because they're trying to make another member of the organization. It kind of goes into Kingdom Hearts 2, but they're trying to make another member of this organization so that they can have the Keyblade to unlock Kingdom Hearts, and so on and so forth. So it's a really great story, and it's a really integral part to the entire story of Kingdom Hearts. But the issue is the gameplay for that game, because so the way he puts it is that because, as from the director himself, Tetsuya Nomura, as he quotes, he says, the game is primarily, so the battle system is used with cards because he doesn't remember how to fight from the first Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
So the cards, and in the game, the cards act as like his memories. So like he'll be given a card that, is like a world he traveled to in the first Kingdom Hearts, or of a character, or so on and so forth. So you collect. It's a deck building game, and it's like ridiculous.
That feels so out of place in Kingdom Hearts, and that's coming from somebody who hasn't played any of them.
They haven't done it again since, and it might be better on handheld. It might be better on handheld because it just seems like that type of game. Mm-hmm. But in the 3D space, it's like maddening because you've got the bosses using cards too, and there's like this whole mechanic where you have to like have a perfect set of cards to get like a good damage on them, but like it's super strategic. Like I've never seen a game that strategizes that crazy. It's almost like it's so, maybe it's great on mobile, or not mobile, on Game Boy, but on PS2, and then when it got ported to PS4, it's such a travesty. It's like, I don't want to bash on them. Like, I know what he was trying to go for. I get it, and that's the type of guy Nomura is when it comes to the Kingdom Hearts franchise. But I don't know how well that game works on a console. It's just not good.
It's atrocious.
It's so hard. Like, I've never been so defeated by such a system like that. Like, because like you really are into the story and you really want to get to the end, but at some point you're just like, like I'm getting my ass whooped by people using stupid cards. It's ridiculous, is what it is.
They don't have their heart. They don't have their heart in the cards. I was just looking to see what the basic reviews were for this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to just take a quick look because I don't know anything about this game aside from what you're telling me.
I mean, I think it did well.
So it didn't do too bad, but your assumptions were true, at least according to Metacritic, that the Game Boy port was better. So they gave the Game Boy Advance port a 76 out of 100, while the PS2 got a 68 out of 100.
Small. That's a really small margin.
It is a small margin. But it seems like it's very like it's weird. So across the board, it's like it kind of flips back and forth on which port they think is better. So like OneUp.com gave the PS2 B-, while they gave the GBA one a C+. Then meanwhile, like Game Informer gave it a 7.75 out of 10, while they gave the PS2 port a 6.75. And then GameSpot only did the PS2. They gave it a 6.5. And then GameZone only did the GBA, and they give it a 9.1 out of 10. They're very, they must like it. And then IGN is essentially the same. They gave the GBA an 8, and then the PS2 got a 8.4 out of 10. So it's like, it's across the board. It's like, it's not like,
I will say, so the PS2 version adds another story. It adds another character into the mix that the GBA version didn't do. So there's that, but again, it still uses the card mechanics and it's ridiculous. So I don't know. It's just it's not my game. It's not my game. And the only way I know the story is because I read about it and I watched cutscenes online. And
there you go. Don't even have to worry about ever playing it ever again.
I think they knew it didn't do well because I think a lot of the story is pieced together in Kingdom Hearts 2 and
really?
3. So it's like, you kind of get the gist of what happened. And unfortunately, it just didn't hit the mark.
Who knows?
Sorry.
Maybe they'll try it again. Maybe they'll just strictly do like a Final Fantasy card game, like how they took... Oh god, I'm not gonna remember the name of it, but there was a card game in Witcher that was very popular to play as like a side thing in that game, and then they're like, all right, let's just take that and make it a small like game outside of that, and it did super well. Like, critic wise, sales wise, everything, people loved it. So maybe they'll do something like that. I don't know. Maybe they'll never touch it ever again, and this is the last time.
Never touch it again.
This is the last time Chain of Memories will ever be brought up in a conversation ever.
Ever. Just kidding. It'll probably be back up soon.
Right.
Okay. So my favorite topic is next up. I think it's the elephant in the room. I was gonna say something cool, and then it didn't work out. Let me just say it because I want to say it. We're gonna switch things up.
Bingo. Bing, 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 bing. Also, this is the mic off of these headphones. They can come off. It's got a jack. I didn't just rip it off. No, I pull it off. So when we're doing the podcast, it's not just like hanging out there. It's not picking up two mics at once. I mean, I could mute it, but it's easier to just pull it out and then it just doesn't recognize the. Oh my god, retractable mic. That's sick. It's easier to just take the thing out and could use my old handy dandy Rock Band mic. So
makes sense.
So we're moving right on to, like you were saying, the elephant in the room. On what's today's Monday? It was on Thursday. It came out. Was it Thursday? Yeah. So Thursday of recording, which we were recording on January 20th. That was January 16th. We got what we had been hoping for so long, and then leaks came out, and leaks can only lead to only so much confirmation. It turned out 90+% of what was leaked was true. Thank goodness. And that is the Nintendo Switch 2 is coming this year. Nintendo confirmed it. They have a direct coming up in April, I believe April 2nd. Then they're going to do a whole like hand-selected community event thing where you can go and test it out and whatnot. It's going to be this huge thing, and they confirmed, like I said, a good majority of what everybody's speculations and rumors and leaks of what were coming out for the console. They pretty much confirmed a good chunk of that was true. Brandon, I know you are super pumped about this. Yeah, take it away.
I'll take it away. Man, like, all I remember is... So let me tell you what I was doing that day. That day, I woke up, and I was like, okay. So, well, actually, let me say this. The whole night before, usually when this happens, they tease that, like, like last when they did the Switch, the night before, it was like 8:30 p.m., and they said, tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. for an exclusive first look at the Project NX, which at the time was the Switch. And next day, 10 a.m., it was there. Bam, boom, bop. And so here we are now, and it's the night before. We get no word about anything. I'm looking at Reddit, and I'm not on Reddit. I just look at Reddit because people, I trust some people on there with some wiggle room.
Yeah.
With some wiggle room. Like I like there's some people like, okay, they have a source, like I can trust this,
Yeah.
and some people are like just being silly.
They're just
Pure
blowing
silly.
smoke out their dang ears.
Yeah, but a lot of that week was you watch January 16th, watch it. And like it would, we had big leakers coming out, like Nate the Hate and what's his face, Piero. These are big leakers in the game of Nintendo, and then when they started saying stuff, then you start seeing IGN and Games Radar, and all these big. And usually when that happens, then it's like, okay, I feel like they know something that we don't, and like because usually when it happens, it's like, they tread very light water. But I feel like they had the trailer in their hands that Monday, the week of, and whatnot. Anyways, so that night before, no announcement. I think I was up until like 10. I was like, okay, well, whatever. There's a chance they might shadow drop it at 10 a.m. Like that was my mindset because I was like, they wouldn't do it so early on. But anyways, I wake up and go to work, and all of a sudden I'm sitting down and I go on YouTube because I usually listen to music while I'm working on YouTube. And all of a sudden I see a bunch of live streams, like, okay, they're probably just prepping for the announcement if it does happen. And then all the live streams are like, it's here, the trailer. And I'm like, what? Like this early? And I scroll down just a bit more and I see it. And before they shared it, it said like check out, or I can't remember how they said it, but they usually say how they do Nintendo Directs where it's like check this out, and it was very like teasy, like and it didn't show the console. It was just the Nintendo red logo. Didn't see the Switch 2 yet, so like they were hyping this up already to begin with. Clicked on it, 2 minutes went by, and I couldn't believe how much was right. And even though a lot of things leaked, it was good to finally know that it was real and that they didn't stray. They didn't do a Wii U. They didn't do, they said we're keeping Switch. Switch might be the definitive console like a PlayStation or Xbox where it just keeps going from here. We are going to stay in this market of hybrid. And along with that, keep it in a way where it lives among the other Switches. So, I mean, I guess we'll just kind of break down of everything we saw. So the first thing we see is the original Switch. And like, I really like so let me start with this. I really like the way they display this console. Compared to other years, well, so the first year was very like hype, teeing up things, we're switching things up, this is not what it used to be, and so on and so forth. This is very modern, this is very sleek, this feels very mature for Nintendo, and I think that's what they want to go for. They want to target an audience that is not just children, but I think adults, because I think that's their target here. They want to make a console that is for a mature audience who wants to not only play comforting games from first-party Nintendo, but also get into third-party games that are going on to Steam Deck or, so on and so forth. And I think that's the first thing I think I saw when I entered the trailer was like, this is very much a Nintendo version of a Steam Deck. It is very sleek. There are, very minimal color use, but it still has that Nintendo flair when it comes to colors with the red and blue accents on it. And yeah, it's just a great design. It's a beautiful design, and I think it's gonna feel really great in everybody's hands when they get their hands on it. I like the matte finish. it's going with that OLED style where it had a very matte finish on it. And then the Joy-Cons are bigger. The screen is bigger. The bevels are completely not there, which is great. The OLED has no bevels, very little bevels, but I was so worried that they would go back and do the original Switch bevels, which were at the time fine, but they're pretty big.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to live in that era of having those huge bevels on there. I think we're way past that. So that was a huge win for me, just to have less bevels, even though it might be an LED screen. We don't know yet, but knowing Nintendo, the cheaper they can go on this, the better. So I feel like it's going to be an LED screen rather than an OLED, and then later on an OLED version. So, but that's fine with me for just a starter. Like I said, the Joy-Con are bigger, and along with that, the buttons are larger. So to those with big thumbs, congratulations, you won.
Thank God.
So yeah, it's like it's losing its minimalistic design, but I think that works. Is just like, you know, from just a lot of people from talking around, is like that was the big issue, and obviously that was not something they could fix right away because they have already designed the console for a certain sized Joy-Con. So now that they're bigger, we can enjoy two-player games better, I think, especially with the trigger buttons that are much bigger now than they used to be. You won't need to put in the Joy-Con strap to make the buttons bigger. So that's a win in itself, I think. The other things we noticed was, so we kind of talked about this in the leaks, and this kind of seemingly confirms it, but there's a point in the trailer where they're done showing off the Joy-Cons, and like the beat just drops, and as it drops, they click into these straps, and then they start racing along on this, you know, flat surface, which makes it seem like they're hinting at the mouse feature that was heavily leaked. And I think it's there because there's a point where they're flipping the Joy-Cons around and showing you, like, you know, the back and side of the Joy-Con. You can see like this little square. It kind of looks like that. It looks like a mouse thing. And I mean, that just seemingly confirms it. With that in mind, they just... So, here's the thing. When the Direct happens, people are going to go nuts when they say there's a mouse feature. And when I mean nuts, I mean they're going to say, this has a mouse feature. Let's show you a game that works well with this. And then, bam, we get Baldur's Gate 3. We get games. We get games like I think it's already on there, but what the heck's it called?
Oh no!
Diablo. Diablo comes to Switch.
Okay, yeah,
a great game for a mouse type of game. Civ. I mean, it's already coming to Switch, but that just tells you that like they're geared. Like I know, like Civ 7's a big game, and I'm surprised that they're putting on Switch. But I think the reason is because they know that the Switch 2 is coming. It's going to work with Switch 2, and it's going to have a mouse feature. And that's going to win people over. It's handheld. I mean, you could get a Steam Deck, and Steam Deck does have a mouse feature, but it's a little touchpad thing. But this is like putting a pure thing on here and using it. And then I'm sure you'll be able to connect a keyboard into the dock and go that way. Yeah. There's also another point too. So on the dock, on the Switch itself, there is there's a USB-C on the bottom to put the dock in. But I don't think they showed well because everything's so closed in, but it confirms that there's also a USB-C on the top of the Switch. So it's like, well, geez, like, that's weird. What would you want to do that for? So I think the conspiracy behind that is maybe, so like, it's going to be used for other peripherals. which would be like, again, if you want to use the mouse and play in tabletop mode, then maybe you can plug in a USB-C keyboard and play that way. I'm not entirely sure. That's just like a rumor, or that's just like my prediction. But
Yeah.
what I heard as the rumor, so, and this would be such a, like, what should have happened with their previous console. And so there's been a rumor that they've tested, so remember how like the Switch was selling that there was 3 different modes to play, and that was TV mode, handheld mode, and tabletop mode. And tabletop mode was just like it reclined back and you could take the Joy-Con out and, play like that.
Yep.
So they're saying there's 3 ways to this, and people don't think it's another tabletop, but instead they think there's TV mode, there's handheld mode, and then they think, well, I don't think they think, I think they know that the dock is now, the rumor is that the dock is its own, it has a processing, it's not just a holder now. It has functions. It can run things on the TV. So with that in mind, people think that the console will it'll go back to Wii U routes, where you can have the Switch in your hand, the screen right there, and then either you connect it with the USB-C in the top into the Switch, which then recognizes the screen at the bottom as your bottom screen, and then projects the top screen onto the TV. And therefore doing what the Wii U should have done in the first place, and going back to that asymmetrical gaming, and also being able to do DS games or 3DS games on your Switch. So that was just one suggested peripheral of it. And I think from what we've heard is that, like I said, the dock has been beefed up. It's got internals in it. It has wires in it now. It has some kind of CPU computer in there that's working and cranking to do something. And obviously, I think that's to get to the clock speeds of, 4K at 60 or whatnot. But I think it would be great or marvelous if the purpose was to have that asymmetrical gameplay come back again, to do so many great things that they've wanted to do before. Just to do it right this time. And then, you could play asymmetrical, but you can play handheld too. It was just like how the Wii U was, where, you could play in this asymmetrical mode where, like, the bottom, the gamepad was the map and where all your items were, and you could tap on the screen to, select your items. Or you just turn the TV off and then switch into the handheld mode, and nothing changes. It's just a different way. So that is heavily not leaked, but rumored, and I would love to see that happen. I don't know if they're going to be that ballsy and go back to the Wii U, but I think this would be the right way to do it, because they're offering an alternative where it's docked, it's handheld, and it's asymmetrical. You have 3 ways to play. You're not forced into one way to play for that game. You can play in handheld, and you can just play in docked mode. So,
do you think that would create, like, because a big thing with the Wii U was there were certain games where you could use the, your handheld as like one whole controller, and then you could have separate other ones connected. Do you think that they're going to if this does happen, do you think they would have specific games lined up to where you would use your platform as one, or the Switch itself as one, and then other controllers would connect to either the dock or your Switch and have it all projected on there? Create another way to make do Mario Kart or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be options. I think there'll be, like I said, I think, so with Nintendo, you always got to think, what's the gimmick? What are they going to do that's the gimmick? And I think the Switch had handheld and docked mode, obviously, but other things were like HD Rumble. They had the AR camera thing that they never touched, which I'm glad they're getting rid of, because I think that was such a waste of space. Sorry, Nintendo, but you never did anything with it. I mean, I just think there's going to be alternatives to playing games in ways that you want. I think it'd be great if there was a Mario Kart, because I think that's how they did it with Mario Kart. they had the map on the bottom, which I didn't use it as much, but it was nice to like. It enhanced the. I think the games that worked well with were like Legend of Zelda, where there was the map at the bottom, and you had you could easily like drag and drop items without having to go to a pause menu. Everything was there in front of you. So I think that's where it works the best. Is in those situations where a lot of the gameplay doesn't have to be from it's a lot more fluid. Basically everything's already in the palm of your hands, and you can just like tap the screen, move an item here, and you're done. So I mean, yeah, and again, like I said, developers won't be forced into this logic like they were with Wii U. Like they could strictly just make a game that's just for TV mode and handheld mode, and that'd be that. They don't have to go. They don't have to make an asymmetrical version of it, basically.
Yeah. So. And I know there were other Wii U titles. It was like, what was their like big game where it was like one big hub and you could play other games within that, like mini games and stuff like that. Do you remember what that was?
Nintendo Land.
Yes. So there were games like that. Like there was a little like Luigi's Mansion game you could play. There was one like, oh god, I don't remember. But like one player would be like they would have the handheld and they would have one specific role, and then the other players, like up to 4 on the main screen, would all be like something else. So like you could play as like a ghost in and I think on the handheld, or you would play as like a Luigi like esque character. I don't remember who was who, but it was stuff like that. So I think if they implemented games like that, like not only having like Mario Kart, like I play on the handheld, everyone else plays controller on the screen. That would be a lot of fun. But if they also made games specifically for those features, that'd be pretty sick. If they do in fact do this just in general, I think I don't know if it's a market resetter, but it's gonna be ballsy if they do it.
It's going to be ballsy, but I think the main selling point is that they're going to say it's not, you're not forced into this gameplay. It's an option. It's just like, well, with the Wii U, that was how you played it, and developers were forced into making the games that way. But I think now that it's optional, you're not stuck in this corner now.
Yeah.
And it's like you can make it asymmetrical. You don't have to make it asymmetrical. It's your choice. So,
yeah, well, that's really good. Like, it's good for developers to have the option as well. If this functionality is true, because if they want to go the extra mile and make something like that, that could just make it even more immersive for these, for the gamers that want something like that. And if they don't end up doing that, they don't end up doing that. It's just like another good Switch title. So,
yeah. I think the reason they want to do it is because, they're thinking of like their back catalog of DS and 3DS games that could work well with 2 screens, whether it's a remake or just porting it to their online catalog. So, yeah, I mean, I could see it happening. If not, then whatevs. I think it's a cool feature.
Yes, yeah, and like just if not, it's still I think going to be a 10 out of 10 console regardless. I mean, the Switch was pretty dang close to a 10 out of 10 console, so this one's just going to be like you could. This is it's a big statement, but you could argue that this could be Nintendo's like magnum opus. Like this could be like what everything has led up to until this point. Like the Switch was such a cool concept, and like the Wii U kind of like started that. Wii U flopped, unfortunately. Then the Switch comes out, and this seems like this is like the next big thing. How are they going to make it better? And it seems like they're about to make it better and potentially be their biggest launch ever. So and just simply calling it the Nintendo Switch 2 is also extremely smart. They didn't overthink it. They just they know what everybody wanted. They didn't do like, they didn't go like the Project NX route. They didn't go like, the Nintendo NX or something like that when it's clearly just a Switch sequel. They just Nintendo Switch 2. That's it. They know what the market wants, and I firmly do believe that this could be their biggest console ever.
Definitely. And then so one more thing I forgot to add is there's a scene where, and I think it's like just like funny I think they know what they're trying to convey, but they get the up close on the Joy-Con and you see the joystick like doing these crazy circles.
Yep.
And I think that's just a hint at they finally got rid of
The drift.
the drift, and they're using
Oh my
Hall
God.
effect on
Oh,
the
thank
Joy-Con.
God.
So
God,
I think
I think that's one of the things that holds the Switch back from being a 10 out of 10. It's a very, very solid like 9. But man, the drift is so annoying. Which if they're able to eliminate that, thank God.
I think they learned their lesson.
God, I hope so.
So that's basically the trailer. So by the tail end of it, we are reconfirmed that the Switch is backwards compatible. There's some small text there though that says some games will not be compatible. I don't think this is something to stress. I think this is
No.
more so the games that are very specific to Switch One, and that being like Nintendo Labo. The new Joy-Con will not fit in the Labo kits. They were made for the first Switch, and that's just the facts. Yeah, just all those peripheral type games. Ring Fit Adventure that had a thing that you had to put this Joy-Con into the ring, and you can't do it any other way. So I don't really think it's something to worry about. I think a lot of games
No.
will be day one ready to use. The heavy hitters. You'll play Ultimate day one. You'll play Odyssey day one. You'll play Breath of the Wild day one. So on and so forth. There will not be a game that's not playable. I think that's just the facts. I think you'll be.
Yeah, exactly. Like
I think you'll
all
be fine
their
with that.
Oh yeah, and all their major releases, like you were saying, those will 100% be backwards compatible day one. I know like Xbox and PlayStation did something like there was something similar where it's like, oh, like 85 to 90% of our previous catalog will be backwards compatible. Some of these other ones won't. If I were to guess, aside from the ones that you mentioned where you physically could not play them anymore, I think maybe just some like really small minor ports or whatever will might not get it. But I think every other like AAA title, even like some other like even like major ports, I think you'll be able to play on there. Like we mentioned Doom before. I think maybe stuff like Borderlands as well. You'll probably be able to play on the Switch too. But maybe some just like extremely small indie titles that were like it did super small in sales. It's like why port it, So I think just stuff like that, on top of the ones you physically cannot do anymore, will probably not be ported. But everything else, it's not something to worry about, like you were saying.
Totally.
Yeah.
Then after that, they were officially getting a full direct on April 2nd to talk more about the console and possibly games coming out for it. But there's another side to this, and there is a rumor / leak coming around talking about a February direct. And knowing Nintendo, they've never missed a February direct. They've always done a February direct, and I wouldn't put it past them if they do a February direct, because now that we kind of have this idea in our brains that the Switch 2 is not coming out until June, they have to fill out the rest of this year with something. Something has to come out before Switch 2. And I know there's a bunch of indies still to come out, but I still think, and Metroid Prime, which I still think is going to be a day one launch, but prove me wrong, it could be a month before it comes out. But I just think there's still some things that need to come out to Switch to really bolster the Switch a little bit before it dies down. And again, so far that's Donkey Kong, which just came out, and then March is Xenoblade. So there's probably one more game in the cards. The rumor, so what I've heard is the rumor is that they have one big game coming out for Switch, a game that's a first-party Nintendo game, not Metroid, a game that is a beloved franchise that hasn't been around in a long time. And some of those contenders have so far been Star Fox, F-Zero, Chibi Robo, and what was the other one? I can't quite remember, but those were some of the ones that were name dropped in some conversations. So, and then there's also this other leak or rumor of sorts that's been going around for years and years, which is the Twilight Princess and Wind Waker port from the Wii U that's supposedly exists. I don't know.
Now's the time to do it if they want to just name drop it. At least just like a name drop at the February
Listen,
one.
They've done shadow drops before for old games. They did it for Metroid Prime. They did it for Pikmin 1 and 2. And these were old games. So
yeah,
if they did it, like if the February Direct came and they said, these games are available now, people would rush to the eShop in a heartbeat.
Yes. Yeah.
Easily. And they pay whatever means necessary to get the game. Mm-hmm. But I think
100%.
I think they'll be reasonably priced. I don't know. Like Pikmin 1 and 2, even though they're GameCube games, they were each priced at $30. So and you paid Pikmin 1 and 2 for $60. That's not bad. I'll take it. No. So yeah, I could totally see them in that. If the February Direct exists, they just drop those games. They just shadow drop them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, and with that, I feel like there's also a chance they show some games that are coming to Switch 2. And I think the beauty of them talking about Switch 2 now is we're going to see a lot of people announce their games are coming to Switch 2. So, with that in mind now, oh, and then there's one more thing, which was the experiences that are happening. So, Brian and I and Jared have signed up to go, crossing our fingers if we get picked.
Hopefully.
And if we don't, and if only one of us is picked, they're going out to New York City by themselves and reporting out.
Yes.
No, but hopefully we can all go and experience it in New York City. So we're really excited if that happens. But anyways, back to what I was saying before. Now that Switch 2 is out and about and it's very known, developers are now free to open the floodgates and just say, we're coming to Switch 2. And it's already happened with a couple games so far. They've already... So most of them are just indie stuff, but one of them was Mouse PI for Hire. That indie
really?
game, yeah, is coming to Switch 2.
Oh, okay.
There's been a couple other ones. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But let's remember that what's the 25th? I can't remember. I got to look at when 25th? This is happening.
25th is a Saturday.
Oh, then it's definitely
January or February?
January.
January, yeah, it's coming at the time of recording. It's this coming Saturday.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I got to confirm something.
I got you.
23rd. So on January 23rd, there is an Xbox developer direct happening. And Brian is seated. So obviously there's been the heavy rumor that that the Halo Master Chief Collection is coming to Switch 2 and PS5. And I wouldn't put it past me if they have one thing, like in their... They show like 4 games, but like the fourth one has like a question mark on it. So something leads me to tell me... I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but if they were to just open the floodgates and say, hey... the Master Chief Collection is coming to Switch, I think people would go balls to the wall insane, and they'd be the happiest people on earth.
Yes.
There's a second part to this, though. The second part to this is, now that Switch 2, I think, has reached a point where you can have a lot of great games from newer generations come on there. And I think this has also been talked about heavily, is Xbox Game Pass would come to Switch 2.
Really?
It would
my God.
It would be its own thing, like a PC Game Pass, except it'd be, like it's curated for Switch 2 games. Yeah. So, and it's not surprising. I mean, Xbox is exploring this new realm of getting some of their games on other consoles, and they are really buddy. Like, they are tight with Nintendo for some reason. I don't know what it is, but there are games that have crossed over just to Switch 2 rather than PS5. I think that's easily said and done. So my hope is that it's Master Collection, but a dream would be that it's Game Pass. I mean, people would easily go for that. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they do it with PC, so it's like, why not put your Game Pass on other consoles? It would be an easier way to get people. I mean, obviously you pay through Xbox, but still, I mean, you're getting games, and Xbox will get the money for it. So I don't see why it's not a bad partnership. And along with that, I think the reason they would do it is because I think Nintendo's very focused on their classics. So I think instead of Nintendo doing their own monthly, 2 games free, whatever, Xbox would handle that portion. And they would flood the system with the games that can play on Switch. And I think there's a huge library to work with. A lot of the games on there are like from Xbox to 360 to One, which all of those, all that and that family can play on Switch 2. So just really look at your library of Xbox Game Pass and think of the potential of already having thousands of games, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of games already in the palm of your hands, ready to play on Switch 2 day one.
That'd be insane. That would, if it's every game, at least a good majority of games that are on the current Xbox Game Pass, because I don't know what PC Game Pass has. I know it's like 90% of the titles that Xbox has, but that would, one thing, make my dream of having a true Madden on the go release become true, because they did it for the 3DS, and that one, it has its novelties, but it's not the greatest. I know PSP had some, but that would, like, on something like that where it would run flawlessly, I would love that. I would adore something like that. So that would I don't know if that's like a console seller for me, but just the idea, like the limitless possibilities of what they could throw on there for Switch is like insane. So we shall see.
We shall see. I mean, it's an automatic win. I mean, it would put Switch to the forefront where they can catch up so quickly on their game library, on so much they've missed on, and along with that, hopefully being at like the low cost of like $20 a month, because it'd be just Switch curated games. It wouldn't be. You might not get day ones, but you'd get like, Viva La Pinata if you're into that.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yep.
But a lot of like rare games are there too, so it's like, I feel like they're like, if they're this close to doing it, they're this close. They should just do it. I mean,
do it.
They'd make so much money easily.
They would, and it would be. It would be. I think it'd be received so well, like how Game Pass and like PlayStation Plus is like currently. I think it's just like, why? It's almost like why haven't they done it yet?
Right.
Yeah. But
anyways.
God, I hope they do. That'd be sick. Oh man.
So I feel like this has just turned into a Switch 2 podcast from now on. But if it does, it does.
Yeah, if it does, it does.
But I was gonna say there's been some more leaks about games coming to Switch 2. I don't know if it's day one, but oh my gosh. So there was Master Chief Collection was one of them. Doom Dark Ages is going to come to Switch 2.
Oh my god.
Elden Ring will be on Switch 2.
That doesn't surprise me too much, but that's a big big one.
It's a big game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're just like, yeah. I mean, it's only a matter of time until,
Yeah.
probably the month before April and March where we start seeing a lot of developers come out. But I feel like a lot of them, because like there was that Switch. If you go back and watch that Switch presentation, it was crazy. Like you had people from EA coming up on stage, and Bethesda coming up, and like Skyrim, and so on and so forth. So like I can see them doing that again, where they invite developers to talk about like we're finally bringing blank to Switch, and it's just gonna blow people out of the water. I mean, Steam Deck is great and all, but Nintendo has such a way of like marketing and persuading people to, hey, this game has been out for so long, but it plays great here, and that's just how it is. I mean, that's just how it is. And
Yeah.
again, if they offer those great features like the mouse feature, like you can play Baldur's Gate 3 or Diablo 4 the way it was intended. And yes, you can hook up a mouse to your PS5 or your Xbox and play it that way if you wanted to. But it's part of the system. It's
part of the
already
system.
there.
Yeah, you don't have to buy anything else extra or whatever, or hook up anything external. It's already there.
It's crazy. I can't wait to see what else they say. So that's all we had. Oh, I forgot the biggest thing. Mario Kart 9. Mario Kart 9's in the trailer. How did I forget that?
I don't know, Brandon.
I'm so into the leaks and rumors that I don't want to listen to the facts. So yeah, Mario Kart 9 was shown off. So I got to look into it deeper, some of the like designs and whatnot. I know Brian, you just rewatched it and probably didn't notice as much as I did, but the one thing I wanted to point out, two things I want to point out. So in the beginning, the camera goes back to the point where you don't see just 12 racers or 12 checkmark lines. There's 24. So
I saw, yeah, I did. I caught that in like a screenshot or something like that. If that's true, which now obviously it is, that's insane.
24 racers can be in a race now.
It's kind of we're doing F1 now. Good lord.
Yeah. There was, and I think there was somebody, I read somewhere that I'd never seen this interview, but somebody said there was an interview back in 2022 and they were making the new Mario Kart game and there was talks of reinventing the formula in some way. I don't know what that is. I'm sure we'll find out because this game so far doesn't give me like what's the gimmick? Because every game has a gimmick. You had Double Dash where you had two people in a cart. You had Mario Kart 7 where you went from flying to being underwater and driving, and then Mario Kart 8 was the anti-gravity mechanic where you could go like upside down on tracks and stuff like that. So I'm like, what if like somebody brought out the idea that like, well, it's Mario's 40th anniversary. I don't think is it this year? I can't remember when no, it is this year. It's this year. It's Mario's 40th anniversary, and there's rumors or rumblings that they're going back to the classics, like just straight up, Mario Kart. But that's like rumored. Grain of salt. There's some other things that you might notice, like there's Peach in the background. She's just wearing her like classic costume, which she's never, or not classic costume, but her dress. But she's never done that in a Mario Kart game. She's always done the sports suit, the racing sports suit. So people are believing that you can change costumes now for the characters, kind of like how you can in the mobile game. So that's a cool feature if that's true. If you look close in the background, you can kind of see Donkey Kong has this new design.
I did see as well.
Yeah. He's got this very classic look to him and a bit more doofy looking, which I enjoy. I like it. I'm all for it. And I think just the physics look great. I mean, they kept Mario's design in Wonder, which was this like chubby, more plumper Italian plumber, rather than like, more upright. I don't know how to like describe him, but if you played Wonder, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, you kind of have an idea of what they're going for here. And then what else? Mario Kart 9. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to obviously be a day one. I mean, the game has sold over 12 million copies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer that that's going to be their day one seller. I mean, people are going to go feral just for that alone.
Bananas over it.
And yet we still don't know much about it, but I know it'll be a system seller, and that's really that. So
Yeah.
So with that, a lot happening. A lot of games are going to be announced pretty soon. I hope the February Direct provides some of that. Like maybe that, where they always end, they're like, we have one more thing, and then they show like a Switch 2 game or something like that. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, we've got a while. We've got 3 months, less than 3 months until the Direct happens in April. And we're hoping for a late May or early June release, basically, from there. And then from that point on, we're all on the Switch 2 train.
We're all in. We're sailing off. It's batten down the goddamn hatches because it's gonna be all Switch 2 from here on out.
I'm so excited. Brian knows how excited I am because I've been saying in the chat a million times, like, guys, did you know that they announced Switch 2?
And you did say the day before that you would cry if it was not announced.
I was going to listen
or if it was something else.
I was going to listen to but the Next Time I Fall, I forgot who's it by. It's a great song, but it like really told the story of like, man, next time I fall in love with Switch 2, pull me out of it. But luckily it's announced, and I don't have to listen to this.
No, you don't have to sit and cry and listen to that song now. So
I don't.
Yeah, we know it's coming, and it's all official.
Oh my god, it's just it blows me away that they finally did it. I get it though. They did it.
They did it.
That's all I really had to talk about Switch 2 for now. Brian, did you want to add any last minute thoughts?
I think the look of it is, I think you mentioned before, like specifically it looks very mature. I think it is, I honestly think it's the best looking handheld console maybe ever, just based on look. I think it's very slick. I think, like you were mentioning too, they're trying to gear more towards all ages aspect rather than like just like kids. The Switch, as it went on through its lifespan, they made it more for everybody. But like initially, I think based on look, everyone's like, oh, this is just like a kid's console. It's like a DS, it's like a Wii U, something like that, or a Wii, whatever. Especially with the color Joy-Cons and everything, and they're doing that still. But it's much more subtle, and I think they now know that what the Switch is capable of if they're trying to go up against now, like, not just, their typical competitors, Xbox and PlayStation. Now you're trying to go up against Steam Deck and stuff like that. And now, like, you want a wider audience to pay attention to your console and invest in it. And now that's easily the best way to do it, at least just from first glance, is just the pure cosmetics of it. It just looks so sleek.
Sorry, I wanted to add.
Oh no, you're okay.
Because that was a good point to make. Is the design of it is not a lot going on, but like compared to a Steam Deck, I feel like there's so much going on that console alone.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous how many inputs there are. Because I get it, they're trying to manipulate a keyboard and all that stuff, but it's like, think about how much more simpler games can be on Switch with just the typical layout when you see on Xbox or PlayStation. You got your directional pad, your stick, and now a mouse feature supposedly, and whatnot. So, it changes the game. And then another thing, the design, the cosmetics of it all. You got to think what's gonna pull someone in when it goes on a store shelf in a demo next to these other ones, it's going to look a little kiddish with the red and blue or whatever the colors they choose. I mean, I
Yeah.
get it. For some people, they really love the colors. It's very Nintendo. But I think the way they're thinking it when it comes to an American audience is it's kind of like the 90s again, where that was such a time where things were changing. A lot of things were alternative rock and hardcore, and
Yep.
that's what people were going for. And you look at people like PlayStation, who all those years. I mean, they went back to like white now, but like all those years, it was like a black console design or a gray console design, and a lot of their marketing was like heavily like mature, like that's what they went for. And
Yeah.
and GameCube was kind of like that too. They had a very alternative style. That was 2000s though, but and I'm curious to see what the commercials do look like for Switch 2, because that's always the most interesting part, because I feel like there was such a huge switch up from Wii U to Switch, where you saw a lot of more younger adolescents, young adults using the console, those who travel frequently or on the go and stuff like that. But I feel like when it comes to Switch 2, you're going to get a lot more of hardcore stuff. Like, you're going to get more AAA titles to be on this console, and I think that's going to be they're going to try to tackle that Steam Deck market, basically.
Absolutely.
You were going to say one more thing, I thought?
Oh, yes. I've mentioned this numerous times, and I mentioned it when we were talking about Switch leaks a couple weeks ago. Some wishful thinking here. Listen here, Nintendo. I have one wish of this console, and if you don't do it, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything nefarious. If you don't do it, then it is what it is. But bring me, give me Scalebound on your Switch. I don't care who makes it. I don't care who picks it up. As long as it goes on Switch, because I heavily doubt it's going to go... I really messed up my camera here. I heavily doubt it's going to go on anything else at this point for however long the Xbox Series X has been out and the S, and how long the PS5 has been out. It's not coming out on either of those.
Platinum hasn't made a game since Bayonetta, so just throwing that out there. Weren't they the ones that were going to make it?
I think so. I believe so. It might go... Maybe it'll be a PC release, but my wishful thinking is go to Switch. That'd be such a great release. I think people would love it. I would adore it. And I think it's not going to be a day one. Like I mentioned this before, that I would love for it to be a day one. It's not going to be a day one. And I also don't think they would shadow launch it either. I don't think like, oh, Scalebound, here it is. Remember this game? We're going to drop it today. I think they would do another trailer for it. They would do another gameplay, because the gameplay we got was it's like alpha footage, I think, or maybe beta footage. I don't remember. But it wasn't fully complete, and it still looked amazing. So if they just give us updated footage, be like, hey, listen, Switch is coming out. You said what, June?
Yeah, June. Early June, hopefully.
Early June. Hey, even if it's like a holiday release, or if they want to do right after, maybe like a late summer release, that'd be great. That is pretty much the only other thing that I can think of that I want. Not just the Switch, but just Nintendo in general to do. Please do it for me. I would probably buy your console just for that. And then I can't get this hair to leave my face.
So I just wanted to say this quick. They're working on something. It's called Project GG.
It better be Scalebound.
And it was them that was making the game.
Oh, okay.
So You never know. They also said
crossed.
somewhere. They said somewhere. I was looking at the game wiki, and they said a lot of elements from Scalebound were reworked for Bayonetta 3. So I don't know.
Just give me the game. I don't care. I don't care about Bayonetta. God.
All right.
Sorry. I don't mean to anger anybody, but just Scalebound. Give it to me.
You're just using our platform.
Exactly. I'm using our platform to get Scalebound and to get Call of Duty Ghosts 2. That's all I want. Just as long as if I get those, I'll be a happy camper.
All right. Well, I think that does it for episode 9. We're almost at 10.
Wow. Who would have thought? Wow. Who would have thought we would have made it this far?
I didn't. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, Jared has forcefully pushed himself out of the group because he couldn't take us anymore. So that's where he's gone. He will not make it to 10. So you will not see him here. You will not see or hear from him here on out. No, he'll be back next episode. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
That was hilarious. What a transition. All right. We will see you all next week. Have a good night, good day, good afternoon. Talk to you later.
See ya.